Look how beautiful that wahoo meat is. What's up, y'all? I'm Reed the Fishmonger, and today we're gonna fillet up a gorgeous, hours out of the water, locally caught wahoo. Every fisherman gets excited when they're reeling in a fish and they see those stripes. The stripes in this wahoo light up when they're coming out of the water. It's a beautiful sight, especially exciting because of how delicious they are. All right, we've got our beautiful wahoo. We're about to get it cut up for you. As you can see, there's not a great gaff on that guy, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of work to trim it out, make sure we waste as little of the meat as possible, but it'd be good for you guys to see what we do in a situation like that anyways, because not everyone can be perfect head gaffs every time. All right, we're gonna pick up the fin. We're gonna go behind the head at a hard angle. That wahoo meat goes all the way up behind that head. You've got that pectoral fin down here. Look how far up the knife goes. We're gonna get a hold of that fin, separate just like that. Often what you see me doing is making a line from here. On wahoo, there's a hard, cartilagey, tougher skin right here. And when you're making your line right there, it's gonna be harder to break through and you're gonna end up tearing the meat a little bit. So we're gonna come this way instead of this way, just this once. We're gonna wiggle our knife right in there and got to reset it because of that gap, but that's okay. Wiggle our knife. And notice how I went a little faster, a little harder right here, because if you try to work it too much, you end up separating your meat, and that's a no bueno. Now we're gonna make sure our knife is resting on top of the skeleton as we make our next cuts, making sure that we lose zero of that delicious wahoo meat. We're gonna use the tip of our knife, base of the ribs, angle it slightly up. Make sure your knife is resting on the skeleton, not levitating. And separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs. Now you're gonna rest your knife right on top of those rib bones and slide down. Go to the top, ever so slightly. The reason why we wanna make sure we go to the very top of the spine is so that way we can get a little dip with our knife on the second side, not losing any of that wahoo meat. And there we go. Look at that. And we did end up losing a paper thin layer of meat right there along the skeleton. That's okay. That's work snacks. Love raw wahoo. All right, now when it comes to cutting the second side of your wahoo, we're gonna flip her over, pick up the fin, go behind the head, and we're gonna flip her back over, and we're gonna cut the wahoo upside down. So now we're gonna wedge our knife right underneath the skeleton, and look at that. You can watch your knife cut through. I love getting to see the knife as I slide down, getting that perfect cut, super satisfying. And tip of the knife, base of the ribs. Separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs. Now I'm gently going around the ribs. Now that I'm past the ribs, I want to get high enough on that center spine so that way I can hit the second side without losing any of the meat. Second side just meaning the other side of that spine, and look at that. Picked clean, no meat lost. And there we go. All right, so one of the main reasons why we fillet our wahoo upside down like that is not only is it fun, but also wahoo has a delicate meat, and on the second side, you end up having to lift harder on your fillet. And it's very easy to tear the meat on your wahoo, and you really don't want that to happen. And when you fillet it upside down, you're not having to lift on your fillet at all. The fillet essentially just gets to lie there, and you're working the spine, the skeleton, instead of working the fillet. And the less you can handle the fillet, the better the meat's gonna turn out in the end, and that's the important reason why we fillet it upside down. All right, so on the second side, we didn't get all the rib bones out because of how we cut it, but that's okay. They're super easy to cut out, and here's what we do. Slide the tip of your knife underneath those rib bones, just like that. Now follow those rib bones down, around that membrane, getting as close to those bones as you can so that way you don't lose any of that delicious wahoo meat. And we're gonna go straight down from here. Now, whenever you are trimming out rib bones and you get to the bottom of them and you cut down like we just did, typically right where that skin line is, you can follow that down, and we didn't crunch through any bones just now. All we did was cut out that bone perfectly right in front of where those rib bones end. You can save that for later. Now we've got this wahoo belly. Now wahoo belly is not gonna be like a bluefin tuna belly where it's this like fatty deliciousness, even though it's a delicious fish to eat raw. Wahoo belly is a totally different thing. We're gonna trim it up for you in a minute and show you why. For now, we're gonna focus on these fillets. We're going to deal with this now. We're gonna go on one side of it. Wow, look how beautiful that wahoo meat is. That is phenomenal quality wahoo. And we're gonna now separate the high loin from the low loin. We're gonna follow that pin bone line all the way down. There we go. We're gonna repeat the process on the second side. And there we go. We've got our upper low loin right there. Got our upper high loin. Right there. Beautiful. You can see that pink right there. We hit it right where that ends, and look how amazing that fish looks. That damage did not carry through, which is phenomenal. And we're gonna snack on this. All right, bad gas equals chef's cut or monger's cut. When it comes to eating raw wahoo, I love it just the way it is. I love it in just soy sauce. My favorite sauce for raw wahoo, most raw fish, is a sauce called kimchi sauce. And there's a local dude that makes killer hot sauces, and I asked him if he can make his take on a kimchi sauce. This is what he came up with, Gringo Trues, and this stuff is phenomenal on raw fish. You gotta try this stuff out. Now how we're gonna carve up this piece with a bad shot, remove the skin. Don't wanna set it on a wet surface, so we're gonna set it there. Now the skin's removed, we can kind of see how far down the gaff goes, and it does not go all the way down. So we're gonna take off some nice slices. We're just gonna cut that bad gaff right there. Look at how beautiful that fish is. I mean, the translucence on it. You can probably see my finger through it. All right, you guys, let's get back to cutting. If I'm grilling wahoo, I like leaving the skin on. When it's fully cooked, it'll slide right off. It doesn't have a high fat content, so the little bit of fat it does have, it will be held in from that skin, which is just a great tool to use. And when I'm cooking it in the pan, this is what I like to do. When you're skinning your wahoo, you've usually got a good starting point. Get a good grip on that skin. Slide on over. Once the skin is off on your wahoo, you do not want to set it down back on a cutting board that's got all of this gray stuff from the skin of wahoo. You guys ever caught or worked with a wahoo, you know the skin produces lots of this gray stuff all over your cutting board. All right, now I'm gonna cut it once, straight down the middle, then cut each of those in half. Perfect wahoo medallions. These seared in a pan are gonna be absolutely a home run Just the way these cook out is so good. If you've never cut your wahoo into medallions and seared it in a pan, you're missing out. Try it next time you catch one. All right, now we're gonna go on to trimming up those bellies, and I'll show you what I was talking about earlier. All right, now we got our wahoo bellies. If you can see right here, you got some black stuff going on. This is very common in wahoo bellies. You can even feel it, it's hard with your finger. That is actually something living inside of that wahoo. We're gonna check it out. We're gonna first skin our wahoo, get our knife under there, have a nice flat knife. This wahoo skin is easy to cut through, and if you have a flat knife, you're less likely to cut through it. When your knife is angled down, super easy to cut through that delicate wahoo skin. Now check these out, you guys. There's one right there too. Basically, every step of the way through this wahoo belly, there's one of these black things. And it doesn't look like it, but that right there is a parasite that lives inside of wahoo belly. Basically makes most wahoo belly not usable. Not that wahoo belly is really the best anyways. And that's how you fillet a wahoo. If you have any questions, comment below. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much for watching. Have a killer day.